Welcome to the gathering space for the Vancouver Island University Rural Education Research Partnership. This is a partnership that's been created between the Ministry of Education, Vancouver Island University, and 6 school districts in the province. The focus is on supporting literacy learning in rural communities with high percentages of Aboriginal students. The work that we're doing to enhance literacy learning is really focused on the foundational principles of formative assessment, the need to belong to a community of learners, a sense of engagement and excitement about your learning, and the possibility of celebrating and exploring local language and culture.
You are the children of the world. You are the
I think these are relatively self-explanatory. I talked about the coaches and the advisory board, and these are some of the wider community supports and provincial supports to the work.
Everyone needs to come together and really understand who we are, where we come from. We need to place ourselves in that work and that growing understanding. So that's why we're here. And of course, there will be communities of learners in your schools and across schools in your district. And your school may reach out to another school that's not represented here. So there are circles within circles, beside circles, across circles as part of this work.
Learning circles, talking circles, greeting circles, sharing circles are all vehicles that help us gather together, listen to each other, and engage in social emotional learning as well as cognitive learning, regardless of what we're learning about.
It's really important to me as I grow and learn in my own job how powerful that dynamic is.
I tell many stories. I read them from books, but I tell learning stories based on values, and I give real experiences of others' learning to help inform their learning.
One of the books that I use with my students is Yetz's Sweater. And when I'm using this book, I introduce the Coast Salish values of respect for elders, listening, cooperation, sharing, non-interference, extended family, and know yourself. So this is an excellent book for that. What I did was I took it further once they had located their values, the values in the book. I asked them to compare their family values, and that became part of the inquiry question.
I really enjoyed working as a full school on this project. So we had all staff members included in the project, working together and working with their mentors. Every time they showed up at our school, they inspired us completely. They gave us new ideas, and we would tell them what was working well, what wasn't working well, and then they would tell us where to go next. Having elders coming into our school and telling stories to the children really sparked their interest in writing. So they would take the stories and then take those ideas in the stories, maybe study one of the virtues that a character showed in the story, and then we would do a series of writing activities from that.
I use story all the time in my teaching, and we may call that an Indigenous pedagogy, and in many ways is a powerful Indigenous pedagogy. But what's cool about that actually goes back to collective ownership. It's just a great pedagogy.
Moral imperative. I don't need to say very much about this. I think in large part that's why a lot of you are here, that you get that we can look around our cities, we can look around our schools, and we see and we know and we feel that our Aboriginal students, Aboriginal peoples in this country, that we're not succeeding at the same rate as our non-Aboriginal counterparts.
One of the highlights for me was to include more Aboriginal materials into my teaching, and what was exciting was that when we focused on criteria and descriptive feedback, we all found that we saw a marked improvement in student writing.
So getting to know the students really well and making sure that they have a chance to lead about where they might go with their learning, that makes them feel like they belong.
The engagement of the First Nations boy in my classroom, it was so nice to see.
An inquiry is not an opportunity to show what you know. An inquiry is an opportunity to show what you've learned.
Well, I'm especially pleased to see one of my Aboriginal students who has had a lot of anxiety in the last week, a lot of difficulties at home just blossomed this morning, and for him to take on talking to the media about his learning is huge, absolutely huge. And he's so excited, and he just came up to me and he says, "This has been a great morning, Mrs. Epps," and gave me a big hug. So he's just, it's, when you see that kind of change, it's, you know, you've really touched someone. And that's really why you come into this business.
Going to get. So many of the kids were not meeting grade level expectations, or we had struggles even just speaking in sentences that made sense when we were having conversations with each other. Kids would rely on nonverbal language or one word to respond to a question. And now with very little prompting, kids are speaking full sentences, they're explaining themselves, they're describing, yeah, well, when this happens, I can use this strategy that helps me skip past a word and go back. And I'm really getting better at listening to my partner because I remember what he said after you asked me.
And now you're going to move to the next interview, which is 2, interviewing 3, and 4, interviewing 1.
And you feel that without this as an integral part, you wouldn't have moved forward as much. And quite frankly, wouldn't do it again without outside coaches.
Yeah. That's, I think that, and listening to teachers on our team, they've spoken so strongly in support of continuing the coaching somehow next year.
And having your coaches say, you know what, we're coming up, you know, what do we want to talk about? It brings it to the forefront all the time. It keeps us on task. And so to me, that was my accountability piece, to make sure that I'm, you know, engaging my staff to keep doing what they need to do.
Our older kids, we're learning about not just residential school, but the whole Indian Act. Our grade 6, 7s, we're learning about ancient civilizations, and our grade 5, 6s, we're learning about something Canadian. It had to be something Canadian, but all of them had to pick something that had a personal connection to them.
Sometimes they might be a little bit worried about kind of how to teach or what to teach, and sometimes worried, especially being in our First Nations community, that they might teach something wrong or say something wrong. And it just comes right back to my favorite words, which are take a healthy risk.
Don't be afraid, jump in. We're all here to support you. Don't just, you know, that quote about sitting on the edge, that it's okay to be on the edge. Just, you know, hop in and we'll get you through it. What does it look like for them next year, and what other supports do we need to put into place to make sure that we're reaching them? Can we include others in our group? We've had some other teachers say, oh, you know, what are you doing, and what can we do? So we really want to encourage some other teachers to come on board, because it's a learning process for us working together as collaborators with such a huge group as well.
All to each and every one of us would like to thank each and every one of you for your compassion and your commitment, for humbling yourself, for your great kindness, always striving to better yourself, to help the children, to help the school system, to help the communities. It takes all of our prayers and strength to strengthen our minds to work together.